Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this fine world. You are listening to the Startup Selling Show, talking sales with Scott Sambucci. That's me. Today's episode is a guest episode, and today's guest is Alex Berman. Alex is the chairman and founder of a marketing and lead generation agency called Experiment 27. He's based in Las Vegas, and so what? Okay, why Alex Berman? Why are we having him on the show? Well, here's the thing about Alex. Alex is and his company, they do a number of different marketing and sales services. Most notably, and this is where I'm going to get your attention, he and his team are experts at generating leads and conversations and meetings with Fortune 500 companies. They have an entire strategy, an entire system that they use and they deploy with all of their clients to help you get meetings with executives at Fortune 500 companies. So if that doesn't get your attention, I don't know what will. So in this episode, Alex and I dove pretty deep for a while on really specific email strategies. And we even talked a bit about his system, his adaptive strategy and iterative strategy on how he creates and helps his clients create emails that work, emails that get meetings with these top Fortune 500 executives. To his credit, Alex went really deep, got really specific around everything from how to iterate, how to write an email, what should the subject line be? What should the first line of the email be? What should the second line of the email be? What should the call to action be? These are all questions that I know that our clients are working on every single day and we're helping them out with. And I know that many of you every single day are trying to solve this riddle when it comes to your outbound marketing and sales strategy. And we're going to dive deep to help you solve that riddle for your company today. I think you're really going to like the conversation I've had with Alex. A couple of other things that we talked about was Alex's dominance and his use of YouTube to help generate leads for his own business and how he thinks about using YouTube and how you could be using YouTube if you want to and if it's the right fit for you. He was very clear and explicit about this. Video's not for everyone. YouTube's not for everyone. If you like video and if you think you could be using video content more robustly in your marketing practice and in your marketing strategy, then we're going to talk through how you can do this. One of the other things we talked about was what he called the 3% rule, the 3% rule, meaning that any of the marketing copy that you're doing, any of the email copy that you're writing, don't edit it more than 3%. We talked about why that's important. And then finally, we wrapped up the last part of our conversation talking about the difference between sales and marketing and why in his perspective, his opinion is that sales and marketing are very, very different and that they should be separated as much as possible, even in early stage companies. So much so that if you are a founder with a couple of co-founders and you've got one co-founder that does product and another co-founder that does the technology stack and the engineering and another co-founder does the sales and marketing go-to-market stuff, you should think really hard about separating sales and marketing to two different people on your team. And we talked about some of the reasons why you should do that. So lots of good content here, lots of good information, lots of very tactical tips when it comes to email strategies, video strategies, and how to think about sales and marketing with your startup and with your company. So really excited to have Alex on the program. He's a bundle of energy. The guy is a doer. He's been a director of marketing at a 60-person digital agency. That digital agency was a 3-time Inc. 5000 agency in New York City. So he's been in the thick of it. He's done this for other clients. Now he's doing it on his own with his team as the chairman and founder of Experiment 27. So he's putting this stuff to work every single day. He's not only just a really good marketer and a good salesperson, but he's just an entrepreneur that sees opportunity and looks at things in a very, very clear and specific way. And I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation. So that's it for the introduction. So that's what you can expect listening to the Startup Selling Show. Now, one thing that I want to announce that I'm super, super excited about, very, very excited about, so very excited because I spent 3.5 years working on one project, and that one project is now come to fruition. That project is a book, and the name of that book is called Stop Hustling, Start Scaling. Stop Hustling, Start Scaling. So if you go over to Amazon and search Stop Hustling, Start Scaling, you'll find a copy of this book. I'm really, really excited about this book. I spent, like I said, 3.5 years working on this book. I've written it and rewritten it probably 4 or 5 times. No pressure on me and no pressure on you to like the book. We've already had more than, at the time of this recording, we've had up to 14 now positive reviews, but 14 5-star reviews of this book already. It's only been out for a couple of weeks. I would love for you to go grab a copy. It's very inexpensive. It's a really great way to get to know more about how I think about sales and how the processes that we use every single day with our clients here at Sales Qualia and in our coaching programs, how we use those processes and how I built those processes over a 20-year career doing enterprise sales. Lots of very specific applications, lots of case studies, and at the end of every chapter, there is a series of exercises. So it's a little bit of a textbook that if you really, really want to get good and you really want to put the ideas in the book to work, I'm actually going to show you how to do it at the end of every single chapter. There's a complimentary or a supplementary website that goes along with the book. So you'll have to check that out, salesqualia.com/theQ framework, salesqualia.com/theQ framework. Once you buy a copy of the book, and even if you don't buy a copy of the book, you can still go to that webpage. I've got worksheets and videos on how to use those worksheets, and every worksheet correlates with the end of every chapter exercise. So this is not just a book on how I've built a sales process or a sales process that you should think about adopting. This is a book to help you build your sales process. And this book is easily, in my opinion, one of the easiest, simplest ways that you can get that on that path. So this is totally unscripted. I'm just sharing this with you because I'm so excited and I want you to go check out a copy of this book because I'm really proud of it, first of all. And second of all, more importantly, I think you're going to get so much value out of this book that I want you to make sure that you go get a copy for yourself. So head over to Amazon if you would, check it out. If you do buy a copy of the book, let me know about it and let me know what you think and let me know how I can help you out to ramp up and scale up your startup, okay? Okay, enough of the commercial. You're like, blah, blah, blah. Let's get on to the podcast. I get it. So from here over to my conversation with Alex Berman. Alex, welcome to the Startup Selling Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott.
For sure. Listen, I got to ask you before we get started, you've got all this wonderful, colorful art all around you. Are you a collector or what am I looking at back here, man? This is beautiful stuff.
I'm more like an art producer. So I've been trying to get really into, I'm in Las Vegas, so I'm trying to get more into the art scene. But like this one over here I made, and then these ones actually, I made this whole series of YouTube videos. I was teaching these people in Shenzhen, China, how to make originals because these guys who painted this, they were masters of like forgeries. Like they would paint a perfect Monet, you know? And I was trying to get them to paint stuff that was like culturally relevant to them. Like this is an emperor from Shenzhen province. And then this one behind me is like the view from outside their office window in Shenzhen.
Yeah, that's beautiful stuff. I know people are listening to a podcast are like, this is doing nothing for me right now. I'm just really fascinated. My mother-in-law is an artist. She sells her work to some different banks and she's done some commission stuff. And my wife does some watercolors. So I've developed an eye for art in that I can see art and go, wow, that's really hard because I can't do any of it.
Yeah, this one was a rug. Like I was really into Virgil Abloh and Off-White, and I saw that he was doing a rug for IKEA. So I tried to make a rug, and then it was all white, and I couldn't walk on it. So I just decided to put it up on the wall.
Put it up on the wall. That's great. Dude, well, it's like a microcosm maybe for how you think about your business. So one of the things I've already done a bit of an introduction and what I'd love for you to do, and something I like to ask all of our guests to say like, okay, so this is Alex Berman, and Alex is, the founder of Experiment 27. What exactly does that mean? What do you do? How do you describe for people around you when they say, hey, Alex, what do you do? What's the answer to that question?
I usually call myself a YouTuber, and our main business is it's a lot of free sales training and a lot of documentaries. Like I'll give people an insight into our businesses. And then our main business, the thing that we're best at is lead generation, specifically around finding extremely high value enterprise clients. So we specialize in getting our customers meetings with the Fortune 500 and other billion-dollar brands. Usually via cold email, but we'll also do events, like whatever necessary to make this happen.
So you just piqued everybody's interest because everybody listening is like, no, I want that. I want a meeting with a Fortune 500 company. So there's a couple things I'd like to unpack in the course of our conversation, and one of them is lead gen because I know you have expertise around that. And a lot of the people listening are always looking for like not just leads, but the right leads with the right companies that they want to target so they can make an impact. And that oftentimes means selling to large enterprises. So that's one thing I want to talk about. The YouTube piece, obviously I want to talk about that a lot too. And there's a third topic, which you and I talked about a little bit yesterday in our prep, that you talked about this doing marketing and sales and how different they really are. And they're if you can't do one, you can only do one really well. You can't really, it's hard to do both really well.
Yeah.
So if we have the time, I'd love to talk through all three of those things and wherever else the conversation takes us. Let's start with the lead gen. And so, I get emails every day and in-mails every day on LinkedIn about people that claim to be lead gen machines and, no fee up front, and I'll get you 100 leads a week and all this kind of stuff. So how do you define and differentiate what you do and how you do it differently from everyone else that says, oh, we help you with lead gen?
So our process that we've developed is basically foolproof at this point, and I try to approach it more like a doctor. So yeah, that is a component of what we do. We'll go out and use the same sort of things to find the leads that all of those other lead generators do. But then we run people through this system where if the open rate is under a certain level, we're rewriting the subject line. If the bounce rate is over a certain point, we're finding new lead channels. So that's one part of it, is just like consistently working on an email to the point where you could send trash as email number one, and then within 6 months you're getting meetings. Like, it's very foolproof, the system we run through. And then the other thing we do is it's strategy. So the type of leads that you're buying from these random lead generators, you might just be buying the wrong type of customers. And also you might be framing your business the wrong way. So we work on that too, like how to take, especially in the agency space and in the B2B SaaS software as a service space, we find that they target too wide of a group of people. So identifying who the most profitable customers are, and then trying to frame that in a way that gets other people like those most profitable customers to be interested, and then pitching them.
Yeah. So a couple levels down, we can go on this. So one, this idea of having an adaptive strategy in a lot of ways, it's like every email is an opportunity to learn and improve. And I'm always surprised, maybe I shouldn't be, by how infrequently a good email comes into my inbox. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, is that just pure laziness, or do people not sit down and really build out these kinds of systems that help them measure what does it take to get somebody to open? What does it take to get somebody to click on that call to action?
So I want to say this is the thing that we innovated on. Like, this is my relativity, I think, is this structured system. Because what it basically is, yeah, I mean, most people, when they decide to send out a cold email campaign, they'll buy a list of 800, 1,000, 20,000 leads, and they'll blast the same email out to all 20,000. When instead what they should be doing is grab 100 of those people, try to write the best possible email, send it out to those 100, and then from there, look at, hey, what's the open rate? Are these leads even good? Is the bounce rate even good? Let's say you do get an open rate over 80%, but nobody's responding, or they're responding negatively. Maybe something needs to be changed here. And just kind of iterating through the system. And yeah, maybe it is laziness. Maybe it's just people don't realize you can run emails like that.
That's true. I think oftentimes I think it's a batch and blast sort of approach. And especially if you're a startup or B2B growing company, there's this pressure to grow. You've got to hit numbers. You've got to increase your MRR every month or every quarter. You've got a board meeting coming up. And so the tendency is just like, well, let's just push it all out there.
Well, what I found though is, so let's say you have 20,000 people in this, like in your lead pool. So potential customers, potential people you can talk to, you've got 20,000. If you spend a week and send even 100 emails a day and optimize after a week, your open rate, your response rate, all of that is going to be so much better after 5 iterations than it would be if you had just blasted out to 20,000. And then you can go out to the 20,000. It's not what I recommend, but even just 1 week of doing a test like that will improve. It'll improve you considerably. Like I've seen 30, 40% boosts on open rate. Like somebody's going from a 40% to an 80% on one test. Like there's some crazy results you're able to get when you do it like that.
So with these iterations, it reminds me, I don't know if you've ever played this game called Telephone Game, where you get people in a circle, and you whisper a sentence in somebody's ear. By the time it comes back around to you, it's like a completely different sentence. And so I'm kind of curious if, like, taking this iterations, like 5 iterations, one a day, can you think of a specific example where you started off with one subject line, you're like, oh, this one's going to crush it, and then by the time you did the 5th iteration, it was like completely different?
Yeah. What's interesting is the subject line that still crushes is the one that all of these salespeople recommend. I've tested so many subject lines, and it's different per niche, but quick question still performs pretty well. And we've tested we've tested like about company and their company, or like hi from Alex used to do well. I would love to work with company, or I was born to work with company, free leads for company, all sorts of subject lines in there. Quick question works pretty consistently. So if you're just going to test something, I'll just go with that. Okay. But that's the mistake most people make, is they think they need to tease the value of the email. Like, I just had a consulting call earlier today, and the guy, I think it was like free leads for your business, something like that. And he was getting a 40% open rate. With quick question, he was getting a 60% open rate. So those people were opting out of the email when they saw the free leads for your business. And I mean, he was doing it totally wrong. This was call number 1. So he had sent 800 and he got 8 meetings, which is, trash. But if he had doubled the open rate by having a better subject line, even with the same email, keeping it the same, going from 40 to 80%, he would have doubled the number of meetings. So he would have had 16 meetings off of that.
Got it. And so a different subject line, like it's a quick question of you, like what's an example maybe of a really specific different subject line that you started with that transformed over a couple of iterations to totally something totally different from what you initially thought was going to be a good subject line?
So I made a YouTube video. If you just search on YouTube, Alex Berman, 50 subject lines, I go through 50 of them. And what we do with our company is we'll just go one by one all the way down the list. Because what I found is fitness people, if you're emailing like personal trainers, they're going to open one subject line. If you're going to email billion-dollar brands like breweries, if you're going to email like huge breweries, they're going to open another. It's strange. And it also depends on the company. So for instance, we had this social media client who was selling to like Netflix and HBO and TV Land. And subject line, the subject line that was working with that for them was, I was born to work with company names. So like I was born to work with TV Land. But when we signed another social media company also based in LA, also with case studies, they had case studies at Universal, while these other guys had case studies at Netflix. The same subject line didn't work. Hi from Alex worked the best, or hi from the salesperson's name. So it's completely variable based on the company, the domain name. I think it might even be the name that you send from. It all changes it.
And do you notice a difference in, like, when you say the name you're sending it from, does that mean if the email address is scott@salesquality.com versus scottsambucci@salesquality.com?
Not that so much as it's the name of the person that sends it. Like, for instance, there's such a strong, I've had a lot of negative responses if a name looks like obviously like you're outsourcing it to another country. Like, that's just what the data says. But like to the point where we come up with like white people names for our salespeople. I don't know why the world acts like that, but that's just like what I've seen in the data. Yeah. Like even my assistant, his name is Divish Sharma. He's from India. He's a very smart dude. But when he emails people, it's Div Sharma, because we found that it's the same. We also used to have a guy working here named Lael. And I had clients tell me that they didn't want to open the emails because of his name. So we try to make everybody have like more normal names. More culturally normal names for America.
Or at least Americanized, if it's like Div or Dev or something, and it's like, oh, this person's Indian, but they live in LA or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not 100%. Like we used to have 2 sales guys here. One was named Afnan and one was named Cameron. And Afnan was doing great on the calls, but yeah, Cameron's emails always got open more.
Man, that's...
It's rough, dude. I don't know why.
That's a sad but important insight. Like, it doesn't surprise me when you hear it. And I like the fact that you're just sharing this, I think is really important, because like obviously like a lot of startup founders, if you look across, the spectrum, Indian and Asian and African and South American and whatever, right? Latin American, everybody has names that are different than Bob, Cameron, Alex, Scott, right?
But there is something to that. Like if you think of the cliche salesperson, he is named Mike or like John or something, or Scott. Scott's a good one.
Yeah.
Just
Steve.
Like something a newscaster would be named.
Yeah. Do you see a difference in gender?
Do I see a difference in gender? No. Because we one of our, I don't see it. So I've had successful people of both genders. One of our best.
Well, I'm just curious if like you saw like overall universally like open rates for, like if a male is receiving an email from a female name, does the open rate go up?
So I haven't tested it. The closest I got was we had a woman here named Letitia, and she was going by Letty over the emails.
Okay.
And she was doing, just as well. Like I didn't see, it wasn't like 10 times better coming from her or something.
Yeah. I was curious because I know in some conferences, for example, depending on the industry, there's this idea of having like the booth babe, and it's just designed to attract. You live in Las Vegas, right?
I mean, it works. Yeah, 100% works. I do live in Vegas.
So I'm just curious about even like LinkedIn profiles. and I actually saw a post about this a couple of years ago where I think it was a woman, she clicked on like a friend of hers, and then within 2 or 3 clicks, because she was clicking on what most people would consider to be an attractive woman, then LinkedIn showed who else to recommend, and it was all like young, attractive women, because that's the way the algorithm was working. And so I was just wondering if there's probably something to that. It's worth testing.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I know Letty was one of our best bookers in terms of like not just the name, but if she did a cold call, it was a little more likely as far as I could tell. But like I don't know, I don't have the data there like I do for the outsourced names versus the Americanized names.
Interesting. That's a good insight. So okay, taking this up back to where we started with the iterations, the adaptive nature of the emails, it's like typical. What you should be doing is like test, have a hypothesis, and then test and be willing to be wrong and be willing to change things and adjust things. What about the body of the email? What have you found as being some of the key learnings that help people to, read more, take action, not take action, lead to unsubscribes, those sorts of things?
So the number one thing that boosted our response rates it was literally 10 times, like 10 times or more, is customizing the first line of every email with a compliment. Yeah. And that's another thing that salespeople don't like to hear, because that means you can't blast out 600 emails at once. You have to take 3-4 minutes and write like, hey, been following your company for a while. Really love the article you posted on LinkedIn today. And there's an art to it as well. That, what I just said, is perfect in terms of the line. What I wouldn't write is, hey, been following you for a long time. Really love the article you wrote on LinkedIn today. Quote, how to improve your team's workflow status by 10% or more. Because that's people do go that way with the first lines too. They go the other way. But that's number one. Customizing the first line. So is it
because it's so obvious that I'm trying to personalize it by putting the title in it?
Yeah. What you're trying to do is it's the vibe of the email that you're trying to get across. So you want the recipient to feel like you are reaching out to them personally, but it's not like you need their business. And that's basically what you want to get across. And I'll talk about the second sentence after that in a second. But yeah, it's a very light compliment. Like if you're trying to reach out to me, you're not going to do 20 hours of research and find the perfect thing. You might look at my website for a second and like riff something.
Yeah. Well, and also if I'm being more human about the whole thing, like if I was going to reach out to you, if you and I knew each other and I'm like sending you a text, I go, hey, Alex, really love that LinkedIn post you did today. Mm-hmm. You go, oh, thanks, man. Cool. What's going on? It would be it's much more conversational versus really enjoyed that LinkedIn post, the one that with a long title. I wouldn't do that in a text message. I don't communicate that way around the office. I just go, hey man, that was a great post. Really loved it.
Exactly. And that builds rapport instantly. And it's not like I need to hear the name of a YouTube video that I did, right? I just need to hear, hey, I've been watching your content for a long time. Really love what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. Love that. So personalize with a compliment. And then what's the second piece?
The second piece is a targeted case study for that specific niche. So for instance, let's say you do have a list, or you do want to buy a list of 600 contacts. Instead of getting something like B2B companies over $5 million in revenue, what you instead should be doing is look at your case study of the other B2B companies you worked with. And let's say you have a really good case study in the financial services software industry. Now you build out a lead list of 600 people in the financial services industry. You hit them with that custom first line. And then the second line is, I specialize in doing X, whatever for the financial services industry. We just worked with this bank and we're able to get them these results in this amount of time. And that will allow you to not have to rewrite the entire email for every single thing, but it adds to the personalization. Mm-hmm. The more specific you can get that case study, the higher your conversion rates are going to be.
Okay. And then what's a reasonable call to action? This is something we talk about with our clients all the time. And in terms of thinking of it, I call it a CTA continuum. So you've got, low friction, soft CTAs, which is like, here's a link to an article we just posted. Somewhere in the middle might be click here to download or click here to sign up for a webinar. And then on the other end, it's like book a call. So it's like soft, medium, hard CTAs. So how do you think about that with your emails?
It depends on how you're trying to sell. Most of what we sell are really high ticket, like 5, 6, 7-figure deals. So we always want to hop on a call with them. And actually, I found that if you add any link at all, even if a link is in your email signature, the amount that your click rate is usually the amount of meetings that you're missing out on. So for instance, if you send out 100 emails and you get 4 responses and 7 people are clicking the link. If you had removed all links from your email, you could have gotten another 7 responses.
Oh, I see.
Pretty consistently.
So by giving people a choice, they're going to opt into the choice with the lowest friction or barrier or whatever.
Either that, or I think they click away and then they get distracted, and there's like a million things, or they go to your website and they see something that, maybe they interpreted the wrong way and now they're turned off your business. Versus if they just respond to an email and you book a call, that's it. So yeah, the normal CTA is, would love to do the same for your business. Mind if I send over a few times for a quick call?
Oh, I love that.
That's it.
Because I see a lot of here, click here to book a 15-minute call with me.
You know where I learned this is, so I used to do the Calendly too, and then I started selling to movie executives, because I do a lot of artist management and stuff. Like my little brother's a DJ. I work with some stand-up comedians, like we're trying to sell TV shows, and people in Hollywood don't click links. So I found that that just sending times, it's a lot easier to coordinate that way for them.
Well, I also like the expect a reply piece to that. It's like saying it sort of tests their engagement on that email, because if they don't click your 15-minute Calendly link, did they not click because they don't use Calendly, or did they not click because they weren't interested? If they're that interested, they'd probably just reply back and go, sure, shoot me a few times.
And it might also be, and this is what I found, especially if you're emailing older people or people that are like Fortune 500 execs, they might click the link and then not know what to do. And then just, no, like legitimately that's a thing. Or they might see all these times and be like, oh, this guy's too open. Like, I don't know what's going through their mind.
Yeah.
But Calendly versus just a question mark, just having that ask does so much better.
Yeah, that's funny. It reminds George Bush Sr. when he was running for election. I don't know if you knew or remember this. You probably don't remember it, but he went through a checkout line in a grocery store that had the scanners. And they were still kind of like new in a lot of grocery stores. This is back in the late 80s. He didn't know what they were. He was astonished. And they caught this on film. And people just said, like, you're so clearly disconnected with the world. Like, you don't even know that these things exist in a supermarket.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of the same way. It's like, he just doesn't do food shopping every day. So how is he going to know what a scanner is? If you're not booking meetings every day, you have an executive assistant or a whole team of people that are responsible for running your calendar. So
I've talked to a lot of assistants at CAA, UTA, like a lot of these big agencies, and a lot of Fortune 500 clients, like, JP Morgan and Starbucks and stuff. These guys don't know what Calendly is either. Like we're in this tech world where everybody uses Calendly, or everyone uses like, what is that? Like any of these booking tools.
Yeah.
X.ai, like people don't know what that is outside of
Zoom, where we are right now.
Yeah.
So
people assume that. Okay. Number 2 is, so that's the email. And then the other thing is consistently following up. I've had, so the first email does do a lot, but then I still can't overestimate 3 or 4 days later, just sending something like, hey, I'm sure you're busy, wanted to make sure this didn't get buried, as a reply to the past message.
Yeah. And how many, because you mentioned this about personalizing the email, and I heard this at the Outreach conference that they had earlier this year. They mentioned the same thing. I've also heard that obviously multiple touches are important. They showed one sequence that took like 28 touches with an inbound lead to actually get the meeting booked because the person was really busy. What's the break point? Because working with startups that are so resource and time constrained, they don't have time to like map out an 18 email sequence. So when do I get the max value and I should just give up and move on?
I usually just do 4, but the time to do an 18 email sequence, I mean, it'll take like 2 hours to figure out. It's not like these are emails, It's not copywriting for a landing page. Just kind of riff it out. The more time you spend on an email, the worse it gets, in my experience. What I normally do is I'll just kind of write an email and then just pull as many words out of it as possible, and then it's done.
Okay.
But yeah, it's normally I use a 4 email drip. So that intro email, just a quick bump. Normally I call this the big win. So, hey, just had another big win with a financial services firm. We just delivered another, X dollars worth of leads in X time. Let me know if you want us to do the same for you, or let me know if you want me to do the same for you. That's the other thing. You're not talking as a company. You're talking as an individual person.
Okay. I like that one because it's FOMO. It's like fear of missing out. Like, whoa, what's going on over here? I'm missing this thing.
And it's also like, it's reaching out because you had another big win. The other way I like to frame that is I'll say, just got off the phone with another CMO at a major tech startup, and he was dealing with these two issues. Here are the solutions we came up with. Let me know if this works. But that email, I don't like recommending people do that unless, we're writing that email because it's tough. That one, and then there's a 2 ideas email, which is also a good third one. And it's like 2 ideas off the bat for your business are these 2. But if those 2 ideas aren't innovative, you can burn the deal the same way. So it's just riskier to do that.
Right. Oh, we tried those and they didn't work.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, exactly. But for us, like when we were first biz deving, we were focusing only on agencies, and I had been the director of marketing at a major agency. So I knew exactly what those 2 ideas were, like optimizing on clutch. And I think it was like Quora questions or like some 2 very specific ones. So if you have that for your clients, I mean, that 2 ideas email did better than our email 1, to the point where I'd swapped it for our email 1 at one point because it was doing that much better.
Yeah. So for like my audience, it's like, hey, I could help you generate more high quality leads and pull more deals through your pipeline.
Well, the reason your ideas are generic there is because you're not niche down. So for instance, if you took your market, you're doing sales for startups. And I say this a lot, startups aren't a niche. Sales for startups could be 10 different companies. It could be sales for funded startups that are B2C in the retail space. It could be that specific. And then once you're thinking about that, if you wanted to come up with 2 sales ideas for a B2C startup in the retail space, I mean, even not knowing anything about B2C sales in the retail space, you could come up with 2 very specific ideas there.
Yeah, I love that. So this is something that I think a lot of startups struggle with themselves, is just picking a niche because they're feeling themselves like, well, the total addressable market is in the billions and I don't want to miss out. And that's why I have to do these big email campaigns. And instead saying like, look, I've only got to get 10 customers in the next year. I only got to get to $1 million ARR or even 10 million in ARR. It's like, if you can't find $10 million in ARR with one niche, you probably have a much bigger problem than trying to go like figure out your email campaigns.
Exactly. And you can use cold emails to find your niche. It's not like you have to commit for the rest of your life. What a lot of our consulting clients will do is go week by week. So, hey, send 100 to financial services, send 100 to real estate, send 100 to retail. And all of those niches are picked because they have case studies in all of these spots. Like a lot of these companies, startups, maybe they have 1 or 2 case studies they can go with. But if your company's been around 3 or 4 years and you've been working with everyone, you have a couple different case studies you can try. And then we just figure out which one works best. And it's also, go ahead.
No, please.
It's also approaching niches a different way. So for instance, let's say you built an app for Starbucks, like one of our clients did. That could be used for other B2C apps. That could be used for other retail companies. Like you can take that one case study and use it to go after multiple niches if you frame it differently.
Yeah, it could be used for restaurant or cafes. Anything. Yeah. Okay. For any franchises, for example.
Franchises, other Fortune 500 consumer brands. Like I could take the Starbucks app and pitch T-Mobile.
Because it's Fortune 500.
It's a Fortune 500 consumer brand. Like I wouldn't use that for like Berkshire Hathaway, But yeah.
No, that's an interesting thought exercise because a lot of startups struggle with, well, I don't have a lot of case studies. I don't have a lot of customers, but I can almost imagine like taking you have 3 customers, almost like drawing a circle on a piece of paper and then drawing the spokes off of that and saying, well, what are the different ways that we could position this, in your case, the Starbucks app? Well, okay, it's restaurant, it's franchise, it's consumer brand, it's Seattle-based companies. Be creative and test because you never know.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can take those ideas and you can either test them all whole cloth or you figure out which ones you don't want to work with in there. So for instance, Starbucks selling to local restaurants. I've sold to enough restaurants to know I never want to do that again. So I would just write that off. And there's going to be ones that you love more. You can test those first. And then you could even rank them if you want to be more scientific about it.
Okay. Dude, this is epic stuff. So dropping major bombs here. This is awesome. So I do want to talk about YouTube because you said at the start when I asked you, what do you consider yourself? You said I'm a YouTuber. So first of all, I guess the first question I want to ask you, and the question a lot of people have is like, how do I use video for my business? Because like there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's all these other places I could be spending time and effort in posting. Video is hard. Video can be expensive. You can do it less expensively, but then the amateur nature makes people feel self-conscious. people don't feel comfortable on camera. So like, tell us, make an argument for spending time. If you were to make an argument to say, look, and I'm not suggesting that you would do this, but don't spend time on Facebook, don't spend time on LinkedIn, don't spend time on Instagram, only do YouTube and video, what would the argument be?
I don't think there is an argument. I think you go back to whatever you're passionate about. So for instance, if you're more comfortable speaking on audio, do podcasts. That's fine. If you are driven by interviewing other people, do a podcast. If you like video and you like to do that, or you think that it'd be interesting, I mean, try to make a couple and see how it goes. I know some people that are addicted to Instagram stories and they just love making Instagram videos. It's whatever naturally works for you. I used to be a blogger. I had another blog called Following the Rules, and I found myself recording the blog into my memos and then typing it up. So I knew then that I'm definitely not a blogger. And then, I love video. So that's why I do it. Any channel you're not passionate about is going to fail eventually. And the other channels, like blogging, is very easy. It's easy to take a piece of video content and have somebody on the team turn it into a blog post. Mm-hmm. Video, if you're not passionate about it, I wouldn't do it. Because you can succeed in any niche. Like you're succeeding with this podcast. I had this other dude, Will Barron from Salesman Red, who's making, he has a whole business built off his podcast. And he just recently started doing video as well. Like there are some people that have businesses built on LinkedIn. It's all about what are you passionate about and what could you see yourself doing over and over again.
Dude, I love that answer because I thought you were going to give me like a whole list of arguments why people should do video. And I think that's the right answer. Now, as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, that was a bad question because I should have known what the answer is already.
Well, no, because people don't think about it like that. People think about where are my customers and how do I go after them instead of thinking about what am I actually passionate about and then how do I appeal to the customers that are on that channel already. So for instance, I mean, let's say you're selling B2B SaaS. There's B2B SaaS on Instagram. They're on LinkedIn. They're on YouTube. They're on Facebook. They're in email. Like whichever one of those you like the most, you're going to succeed with. And you can capture that market share on any of those channels.
Got it. And so what if somebody said, well, look, I do like video, or at least I'd be willing to experiment in this medium. What are some things that you have found to help you get some success? And we talked about yesterday, you've got like 23,000 subscribers.
I think we're at 26, but yeah.
26,000,
like
yeah. And that's there's plenty of people with millions of subscribers. 23 or 26, whatever it is, like that's still a big number, and it takes a long time to get to that number. So what are some things that you found people should be thinking about if they're going to be experimenting with video?
So there's two main content channels that work really well for us. The ones that get us the most subscribers are SEO plays. So I'll do these mini documentaries on people that I find interesting. Like we did a video on what did we do? We did a video on John Ledger, CEO of T-Mobile, and he tweeted it out like he loved it. And then we did a video on Joe Rogan. That's pretty good. Like how Joe Rogan answers an interview question, something like that. Like very highly SEO play content. That's what gets us the most subscribers. The thing that drives the most business for us are in-depth tutorials. So for instance, we do cold email consulting. Our most popular thing for a while was just me going through cold emails and talking about why they're wrong and rewriting them live on video. And a lot of them weren't even edited. It was just 15 minutes of a screen share and people would watch it. Or like one of our most popular videos on that style is sending 200 cold emails at hyper speed, like something like that, where I'm just talking about the cold email and then it's just like dubsteps playing while I send these cold emails.
So you're actually just filming yourself sending out cold emails.
Do the work that you do, and then just try to wrap it around the benefits. So if you it's easy if you're in marketing or sales training, right? Because if you're a sales trainer, just record yourself, record some coaching gigs. If you're in software, record whatever that software does. So for instance, let's say you're a print-on-demand company. Just do reviews of the clothes that you've made. Just try to find something like that fits in that you're passionate about. A lot of our clients are digital agencies. And what I found works really well for them is talking in the form of case studies, similar to what you do with a blog article, where you just talk about like, hey, this guy came in the other day and he was having this problem and this is how we solved it.
Mm-hmm. And that's so before and after.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be visual, but it's just like, just a 3-minute case study. It doesn't have to be an interview with the client. It can be this quality, just like whatever. This is the webcam on the Mac, and Yeah, you just knock it out. You don't even have to edit it at first. Just publish it out.
I love this. Why did you settle on mini documentaries, and how do you define a mini documentary?
So it's not a 90-minute feature. And the reason why I settled on documentaries is because, like, I don't know, I get super into people super quick. So like the other day I was on the Vegas Strip walking by Margaritaville, and I was like, who is Jimmy Buffett, dude? What is, like, he's got this whole empire here around Margaritaville. Right. So I had to do all this research to figure out, how's he monetizing, and how's he monetizing in all these different ways. And then that led to a video. And I was in Caesar's Palace the other day, and there's this place called the Vanderpump Cocktail Garden. And it's the only retail shop in the Caesars Casino that is in the middle of the casino. So they took out machines to put in Vanderpump, which got me thinking, like, who negotiated that deal, right? Because across from Vanderpump, there's Gordon Ramsay. He's not out in the casino. There's Starbucks. They're not out in the middle of the casino. Somebody like Lisa Vanderpump's the entrepreneur behind it. And now I'm going down this whole like rabbit hole about who she is and like her backstory because of that. And yeah, there's no good Lisa Vanderpump mini documentary, so I'm expecting that to do pretty well when that comes out.
And so, so you're not going to actually have her in the documentary. You're just going to talk about her.
Yeah, like the one we did on John Ledger from T-Mobile. They were about to do a merger with Sprint, and I still think it's like they're in the process of going through. So I'd seen this video where John Ledger was just like acting like a wild-eyed maniac. So the whole video was like, John Ledger is the craziest Fortune 500 CEO, and how he's successful even though he's a crazy person. And John loved it, dude. He's like, what did he say? He said, maybe if by crazy you mean crazy about the best deals. That's what he said in his Twitter.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've seen some of his Twitter posts, man, and he is a little crazy. It's great. I mean, it's very edgy.
Yeah, no, it is cool. So we took a bunch of these documentaries or a bunch of these clips of his interviews, and then we took some pictures of him. Like, he used to be super straight-laced, I found out. He used to have short hair and be like very corporate when he was back at AT&T. And then as soon as he got the job at T-Mobile, like, we showed the announcement video, we showed his CEO of the holding company that runs T-Mobile, and then we just showed like John getting progressively longer and longer hair and really coming into his own. Yeah, so it's just, there's an art to it. That's why I was saying don't get into YouTube unless you're passionate about it.
Right. Well, I think, I was trying to imagine, like, okay, so I'm a startup CEO and I'm selling software to banks. Maybe the mini documentary doesn't work for me in my industry, but maybe there's some stories that if I wanted to get into storytelling, there's some stories I could tell around customers, or there's some stories I could tell about the evolution of mortgage lending.
Yeah, exactly. Backstory that's not directly related to your product, right? Where a lot of people make their mistakes on YouTube, they'll say stuff like how X software name, like their brand name, how brand name did this is like the title of the YouTube video. When the history of mortgage lending, or how we got here, right? The state of banking 2019, how we got here, stuff like that.
Yeah, and if you start thinking about different subject areas, like you just took your environment. You said, okay, I was walking by Margaritaville, and it's like Jimmy Buffett. Like, okay, I've heard of this guy. He's pretty successful. He's got people drinking margaritas all over the world every day and making money off of that. What's the backstory here? So I'll use the lending software. Like, you could be at a Mortgage Bankers Association conference and ask yourself, like, wow, they've been doing this conference for 72 years. Let me go find the oldest person in the MBA and just ask that person, how many conferences have you been to?
Yeah, and how has it changed over time?
Yeah, what have you seen? Ask the meeting organizers. And not only that, you're going to create a phenomenal network, and that becomes interesting and appealing, and even better, it gets shared out by other people because it is interesting. It's not
the amount of ideas you get when you start doing that is insane too. Like the Vanderpump thing, like just in my research there, I've gotten so much better at negotiation. The Margaritaville thing, I've been able to, like, I think one of the reasons why we're able to monetize the YouTube channel so well is because I look at people like Jimmy Buffett or like Guy Fieri who take their one brand and cut it like a million different ways. Like Bobby Flay is doing this also. I love Food Network chefs for that reason.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you can get there. Like I was studying Virgil Abloh from Off-White, and his whole thing about editing 3%. So he's a designer, one of the top designers right now. And his whole process is when you have an idea for a clothes, but whatever, when you have an idea for anything, only edit it 3%. A lot of people, when they're building an idea out, they'll change it and they'll do things that seem cool in the moment. But he was saying that ruins the art. And I use that in emails now. I'm like, oh, if I riff an email out, I'm only going to edit it 3%. Like, and I've found that actually leads to higher conversion rate. So as you start going and like picking random stuff, I mean, I found that everything applies to everything else.
I love this 3% rule. I was just imagining myself, because I'll do videos on LinkedIn, for example, or occasionally on Facebook. And if it's a true like live video or something else, like walking into Phil's, I have an idea and I take that video. Those, like, they're natural, they seem good, everything's fine. But if something hinky happens and like LinkedIn doesn't post the video and I have to reshoot it, the second time it's never as good. You can never capture it as well as when you did it the first time. And it's like the idea of like you said, the draft of the email. If you want to be genuine and you want to appear human, then just be human, and whatever comes out first is probably the core of what you need to communicate. So don't try to over-engineer it.
From a data point of view, we found this with our webinars also for our course. We used to edit our webinar replays and cut out all the ums and ahs and cut out the flubs, cut out the intros. As soon as we stopped doing that, our conversion shot up also. But yeah, that insight came from a Virgil Abloh talk to like the School of Design. Like maybe it was 45 minutes into this random talk I was watching. So there is something to be said about just going down crazy rabbit holes that have nothing to, like, I wasn't into fashion at all until I watched this talk.
Yeah. Well, it's an industry like any industry, whether it's banking or pharmaceuticals or telecom or education. And like you said, a lot of things apply regardless of the industry. So, fashion is, creating something from nothing, right? It's a new idea. It's a new innovation. It just happens to be stuff that we wear. It's no different than software. It's its own software, is its own craft, its own art, its own method. So
yeah, and there's a lot to the edit 3% too, because if you're thinking of a software, like if you were going to think of what Shopify app should you build, right? You'll think of something super simple at first. A lot of people will try to evolve that into something more complex, but really, like, I know we run multiple software companies, and some of our most popular, one of them is just Facebook chat. Hey, install this, it's $15 a month on your Shopify store, and we just provide Facebook chat. Like, you don't need crazy ideas here.
Yeah, I love this. Cool. So we've talked email, we've talked YouTube. I do want to spend a couple minutes as we wrap up here on something I think you may have said it sort of off the cuff, but it really caught my attention when we were prepping yesterday. This idea of like sales versus marketing, and it's hard to do both, or I'm not sure exactly what the words were, but most people will sort of group sales and marketing into one big bucket. And you were pretty adamant, like these are actually very different, and you can't do one and do the other at the same time. So I'd love you to tell me about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's 3 sections of any business. There's sales, marketing, and product / operations, finance, accounting, like all of that's in product. And the reason why that is, I separate it based on customers. So sales and product are both talking to customers, but a salesperson really shouldn't be in the weeds on like all the errors, or otherwise their sales are going to go down. They'll lose faith in the company being able to do anything. So there should definitely be a separation there. And then, on the marketing side, if you want to effectively tell stories, I found that you need a level of hype similar to a sales guy thinking that the company's great. But you also, I found the more I talk to customers, like, sure, I'll be able to get an idea here and there. But actually, especially as an agency, the more demotivated I get. Because I'll think I'm great. I'll record a YouTube video. Then later that day, I'll talk to a customer and I'll just feel really bummed out because they always have something to complain about. So I think there's something to that. And then also from a marketing point of view, there's something to be said for treating it more like an art and taking the big picture. So if you're there and you're tactically trying to shape your being to what the customer wants to buy, that's great as a salesperson because that's going to get people to give money to you. But as a brand, you don't want to be what people want to buy. You want to be the thing that they don't even know they need yet.
Yeah, so it's we talk about this as leading your own crusade, right? Especially as a startup, you solve a problem in the market that nobody's solving, or nobody's solving it the right way, and now you exist. It's a new market, new product, and you're out there trying to get people to understand, like, this is the problem, and this is what it's costing you. This is why you should follow us and use our product. In a lot of ways, it is a whole movement, which is marketing based. And if you, like you said, you get too tethered to customers every day telling you why they can't do this, or what's wrong with the product, or the button's blue and it should be red, then you lose that sort of creative mindset.
Or even customers telling you how great you are, which works in sales. If you're hearing that how great you are all the time, you're going to build momentum. You're going to be really good at crushing sales. it might lead to you getting too big of a head, so your content gets worse, right? Like you thinking you think that you don't have to try as hard because everyone thinks you're all, like I've had this several times on YouTube where even like I can't even really watch my own YouTube videos sometimes because I'll get convinced I'm like this genius just because that's like what's presented on YouTube. And yeah, it messes with my quality of content for sure.
Okay. And so
people editing videos.
Yeah. So if I'm a small team, right, I'm doing sales and marketing, or I've got 3 people on my team that are all doing all 3. How can I apply or think about applying this principle of complete separation from marketing and sales?
So when we first started Experiment 27, Robert was running the product and I was running both sales and marketing. So I'd say if you have a 2-person team, that's the separation to have, because product should definitely be separated from sales. A lot of stuff you're doing on product, fixing things, like working on bugs, you don't want to be approaching your sales calls like an engineer. So I wouldn't put sales and product on the same guy, same person. But sales and marketing are close enough. And then, as soon as you can, hiring either a marketing person or a salesperson to do that is better. And I would actually, if you have 2 co-founders, I would put one on sales, one on marketing, and then have somebody else do operations. Because what I've found is operations is a lot easier to outsource. People that can generate revenue are very few and far between, either on the marketing side or the sales side. So if you are one of those 2 people, I would do that instead of trying to find somebody to do that. Until you're at scale. Once you're at scale, you can afford somebody who's great.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. If I've got 3 co-founders, one person does marketing, the other person does sales, because, and probably everybody listening to this is like, oh, we have the one co-founder who's the go-to-market person. He or she is the best person at talking to customers. So they do all things sales and marketing. And then the CTO does the tech stuff, and the 3rd person does product stuff.
Well, so the way that I think about sales and marketing is, product is amazing. You need the product. Customers need to buy something and then it gets fulfilled, right? Like let product go. That needs to happen. Sales is, I like to think of sales as a short-term revenue source. So if you need money right now, sales is going to go out. They're going to crush it. They're going to close the deals. Marketing is more of a long-term revenue source. A blog post you post right now isn't going to get you a client right now unless a sales guy like sends it to somebody. But it will get you a client 6 months from now and probably keep generating clients for 2-3 years down the line. Like we have content that still generates leads from back when I was at my last startup 4 years ago. So that's the way I think of it. Sales is short-term revenue growth, and then marketing is going to be the very long-term revenue play.
Yeah, I like this distinction. And as soon as you said that, in my email box the other day, I had an inbound lead from somebody who downloaded a worksheet, and I was like, God, where did they get access to that link? I haven't even promoted that active lead page for like probably 2 years, and somehow they found that link, and voila, now they're on the marketing list.
You'd be surprised, yeah. And now what we do is for every single one of our YouTube videos, I recorded myself one time saying, hey, if you want whatever's in this video, go ahead and download it in the description below. And now we have a VA team, Div, who's running our marketing, has somebody who will turn whatever's in the video into a PDF, and we just play that right at the beginning and update the link in the description. So now every single video we're making is a lead page as well.
Oh, I love that, yeah. Dude, this is really great stuff. I think this is a really good stopping point. We covered a lot of ground in like a short period of time. The email stuff is epic. Appreciate the expertise. I also appreciate the YouTube conversation and being clear about you should do what you really love to do. And this last little bit here, just talking about sales and marketing, I think it's just a good way to think about how to run the business the right way. Where's the best place for people to come and check you out? Do you want them to go to YouTube? Do you want them to go to your website? If they're interested in getting help with getting more leads, getting help with YouTube, whatever that is, where should they go?
I would say the best thing you could do is go to youtube.com/Alex Berman and subscribe to any of the email lists. And then you'll learn all about the done for you stuff at X27. You'll learn about the course Epic Mail Machine, and you'll learn about the one-on-one consulting. So we have an offer for wherever you are in your business. If you want someone to do it for you, if you're just starting out, or if you are trying to improve your own team, we've got something for all of that.
Yeah.
youtube.com/Alex Berman.
Yeah. And you've got tons of free stuff. I mean, you mentioned the free courses and the free training. Like at a minimum, it's worth going and checking out the stuff that you're sharing. You share so much, it's like kind of crazy how much most people are like, oh my God, all this stuff is free. I try to do the same. I don't have nearly as much volume of free stuff that you have. It's pretty remarkable, and I give you a lot of credit for just pushing that stuff out there.
It's interesting what you create if you just do 3 videos a week for 3-4 years.
Yeah,
The type of stuff you'll cover. And yeah, the way the YouTube algorithm works is like you don't see the super cringy videos. Like I'm sure you only see the sales videos. You don't see me bombing in front of Joe Rogan. Like you don't see all these other videos I've been releasing. So YouTube is very smart about showing the people stuff that they're going to get value from.
Good stuff. Cool. Alex, man, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for spending this time with us. I'm really glad that we had you on the show and got you on the podcast. Absolutely go check out youtube.com/Alex Berman. We'll get the show notes up as well. And as soon as we get this episode posted, then we'll send it out to you, and then you can share it out to your tribe too.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Dude, so good to see you. Talk soon.
All right.
So, hey, well, that was my conversation with Alex Berman. So, man, I learned a lot in that conversation. I was particularly surprised at some of the simplicity of some of the strategies you're talking about. So something as simple as, hey, if I've got 2,000 names on an email address, do batches of 100 emails out and send out those in an adaptive way with different subject lines and then test. I think so often all of us listening to this are like, yeah, I know I should do that. I know I should be testing subject lines. I know I should be looking at open rates, but on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, when we're sitting there going, I got to get leads, the easiest thing to do is to put everybody into one, 2,000 emails into a blast and send it out, and then focus on the 3 or 4 or 5 people who do actually reply, instead of figuring out and taking the time to cut it up and make it, look for quality over the quantity of things. So that was really useful just to hear it, because it's something that I know I should do, and most of us know that we should do, and we're not doing it. So this is your marching orders before you go send that big batch of emails, blasting it out to your market. Just get really, really specific, do some testing, and then do this 5 iterations over the course of a week and see how it improves. You'll be glad that you did. Second thing that was really, really useful that I wrote down was just some of the really tactical stuff around subject lines. The idea of don't tease the value of the email, just make the email human. Make the subject line quick question. Those are the best open rates. The email itself should be, obviously, we all know this, right? Should be personalized, give somebody a compliment, and then get into how you can create value for them. Not about your product, not about the features, not about why you built it or when you got funded or that you were featured at such and such conference. Nobody cares about that stuff. What they care about is themselves. And that's really the message that he was relaying here with that email strategy. So that was the email tips were pretty epic, in my opinion. So you should definitely use those and put those to work. Secondly, on the YouTube stuff, the idea of mini documentaries, it seems like as if you're a software company or a startup, you're like, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. And maybe you don't have time to do huge mini documentaries, but I think there's an opportunity to use the theme of that, whether it's like the history of a certain conference or a certain organization, or looking at the evolution of a certain part of your market. And maybe it doesn't even have to be video. What if you just, paid a research assistant student at the local 4-year college and say, look, I just want you to come up with like a 10-page report on the history of this particular organization or the history of this particular innovation, even if it's a written series. It could be an ebook, it could be a series of blog posts. It's all content that is interesting and useful and gives you a reason to reach out to your community, to reach out to your market in a way that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do that, in a way to really set yourself apart. So anyway, those are just a couple of the takeaways I wrote down here on my iPad as I was taking notes. I learned a lot. I'm really glad to have Alex on the show. And I definitely recommend putting to work some of his ideas that he just shared here, and go check out his YouTube page, the youtube.com/Alex Berman. So that's it for the episode today. I would really appreciate it if you've gotten this far to do a couple things for me, for us, for the show, and for everyone else around you. Number one, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you're listening. We are working really hard to get out more content, to give you more tactical tips every single day, every single week, with guests like Alex Berman and other folks, so that you can grow and ramp and scale your company. So please leave a review. Tell us how we're doing, how we can make things even better, and tell other people about this podcast on those different platforms. And then secondly, while you're doing the review, maybe flick a text message or an email over to a friend or 10, let them know that you've been listening to the show, that this episode was particularly useful to you, get them listening to at least one episode, maybe ask them to subscribe to it. We really love it when we see the episode downloads going up and the subscribers going up. The more that we get people listening to the show, the more of an impact we can make for people just like you. So please do leave a review, and please do tell a friend or 10. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for listening to the Startup Selling Show, Talking Sales with Scott Sambucci, and we'll do it again very, very soon. See ya.